Fatima's fingers brushed a chipped teacup wedged behind spice jars, dusty, forgotten, like her first Parisian winter. 48 years old, and still startled by how loneliness seeped into corners, same as that stray chamomile petal clinging to cup's rim. Back home, market strolls meant laughter, haggling, warmth. Here, there were brisk walks past two pretty pastries. But tonight, a scribbled flyer caught her eye, tea tasting, strangers welcome. Odd, how hope smelled like dried. Fatima's fingers brushed a chipped teacup wedged behind a stack of spice jars, its faded cobalt glaze whispering of Damascus mornings. 48 years of calloused hands knew its weight before lifting, light as a sparrow's hollow bone, yet heavy with memory. Parisian drizzle blurred market stalls as she cradled it, thumb tracing crack. A clumsy step sent her elbow knocking into saffron packets. Vendor chuckled, tossing her a free pinch. For luck, he winked. Her laugh surprised even her, rusty hinges on an old door finally creaking open. That evening, steam curled from her stove like ghostly fingers beckoning her closer. She hesitated. Back home, chamomile meant comfort. Here, it tasted like surrender. But tonight, she poured boiling water over golden petals, watching them unfurl like tiny suns. First sip, bitter. Second, warmth pooling under her ribs. By third, her shoulders dropped, a marionette cutting its own strings. 3 weeks later, she hosted a tea tasting in her cramped flat, mismatched cups lining table. Neighbors arrived, noses pink from cold, bearing almond pastries and halting French. A Ukrainian grandmother clutched Fatima's wrist, murmuring, This tastes like my grandmother's garden." Their laughter tangled with steam, rising past water-stained ceilings. Fear had been a shroud, stitched tight with what-ifs. Now it lay discarded, limp as wet laundry. Teacups crack? Just proof it had survived journey. Fatima's fingers brushed a chipped teacup wedged behind a stack of mismatched saucers in a Montmartre flea market stall. 48 years of life hadn't prepared her for Parisian winters or way loneliness clung like damp wool. But this cup, pale blue with a hairline crack, whispered of home. Back in Casablanca, her grandmother had sworn by chamomile's magic, calling it liquid patience. Here, it was just another overpriced sachet in a supermarket aisle. She bought cup, ignoring vendors' raised eyebrow or clumsy French. That evening, steam curled from its rim as she inhaled, shoulders unwinding for first time since her visa paperwork. A reckless idea bloomed. What if others craved this tiny comfort? Next morning, she tacked a note to a community board near her bakery job, stressed. Try free tea, 3 p.m., Parc de Chamomile. She expected crickets. Instead, 5 women showed up, clutching thermoses and skepticism. Among them was Claudette, a retired midwife with a penchant for neon scarves and blunt advice. She took one sip, declared Fatima's brew better than Xanax, and promptly recruited her to host a proper-tasting local bibliothèque. Creator panicked, her French was still more mime than poetry, but Claudette waved her off. Stress has no language, Sherry. Weeks later, surrounded by strangers-turned-regulars, woman learned to read room. Russian pianist needed extra honey. Tunisian student preferred hers steeped exactly 4 minutes. Each cup became a silent pact. You're not alone. Even teacups crack found purpose. Claudette insisted it made chamomile taste lived in, like good leather or a favorite joke. One rainy Thursday, a woman in a stiff blazer lingered after others left. I run a wellness center near Place de Clichy, she said, sliding a card across table. We could use your vibes. Fatima nearly spilled her own tea. 48, and life was offering a plot twist. She kept chipped cup on her new office shelf, a reminder that some breaks let light in. Fatima's fingers brushed a chipped teacup wedged behind a stack of mismatched saucers in her tiny Parisian kitchen. 48 years old and still hunting for comfort in other people's cast-offs, some habits died harder than others. That cup, though, it had vibes. A hairline crack ran down its side like a map of her own journey, Damascus to Marseille to this cramped apartment where steam curled from her kettle in lazy spirals. Market strolls had become her rebellion. Not touristy ones near Notre Dame, but scuffed cobblestone alleys where vendors hawked bruised peaches and gossip. She'd linger by spice stalls, inhaling ZA adder like it was oxygen, then return home to brew chamomile like some sort of herbal peace treaty between her past and present. Tea tasted like nostalgia laced with defiance, weak against bombs but strong against melancholy. Her first tea-tasting meetup had been a disaster. 6 Parisians sipping politely while she fumbled through explaining why cardamom made her think of her mother's laugh. But she went back. Stubbornness was her last unpacked suitcase. This time, she brought that chipped cup, filled it, raised it, Let its warmth anchor her as she described how chamomile didn't erase stress, just made it sit down long enough for her to catch her breath. A woman with silver streaks in her hair nodded like she understood wars fought in kitchens. Doubt still crept in, whispering that assimilation was a dish best served lukewarm. Fatima countered by adding extra honey. Some days, victory smelled like steam and lavender. Some days, it was just about not breaking when cup already had. Fatima's fingers brushed a chipped teacup wedged behind dusty jars in her tiny Parisian kitchen. Its faded floral pattern whispered of home, not Damascus, not cramped flat sheet scrubbed floors to afford, but a feeling. Steadiness. That cup became her rebellion. Every evening, as sirens wailed past her window, she'd cradle it, steam curling like a secret. Chamomile's honeyed warmth didn't erase ache of misplaced papers or grocery store slights, but for 10 minutes, her shoulders forgot to hunch. Then came Flyer, the E.T. Partridge, a tea-tasting meet-up in Belleville. Her stomach knotted. 48 and still stumbling over French vowels? Ridiculous. But Cup glared from its shelf, daring her. Market strolls had taught her this. Courage was a muscle. She stuffed dried chamomile blossoms into mismatched tins, labeled them with shaky handwriting, and showed up. Eyes darted to her scarf, her worn shoes. A woman in cashmere sniffed her humble offering. Fatima's pulse roared, until she poured. Golden liquid swirled, scent blooming like a bomb. Room stilled. Someone sighed. Cashmere woman took a sip, blinked, then gulped like a parched pilgrim. Mon Dieu, she breathed. Laughter bubbled up Fatima's throat. By night's end, strangers leaned in, confessing burnout, insomnia, loneliness. Her tea wasn't magic, just a pause, a shared breath. Then a flash, someone's phone capturing her cupping that chipped relic, sunlight haloing her silver-streaked hair. Chamomile rebellion trended by dawn. A boutique owner begged her to host workshops. A journalist called it quiet revolution in a cup. Standing before her first sold-out class, Fatima cradled her teacup, its cracks gilded by late afternoon light. No longer hidden, no longer small. She'd steeped more than herbs, she'd brewed belonging. Crowd's energy buzzed against her skin, and for once, noise felt like music. I found my voice, she realized, grinning cashmere woman now front row, clutching a notebook. Later, sipping her own brew, she spotted a young migrant hovering door, twisting her hijab. Fatima winked, nudged a spare cup forward. Some rebellions were meant to be shared. Fatima's fingers brushed a chipped teacup wedged behind a stack of spice jars, its faded floral pattern whispering of home. Parisian rain tapped window as she filled it with chamomile steam, her odd habit, counting steep time in breaths, easing knot in her shoulders. 48, she'd traded bustling Marrakesh markets for Montmartre's cobblestones, but stress clung like stubborn lint. Then, inspiration struck between sips, a tea-tasting meet-up for women like her, stitching community one cup at a time. She scoured flea markets for mismatched cups, each crack a story. Week 1, 3 hesitant souls gathered in her tiny flat. Week 6, her kitchen overflowed with laughter and shared Arabic proverbs. Fatima guided them through steeping rituals, turning anxiety into artistry, shaky hands steadied by warmth, loneliness dissolved in steam. Even Madame Lefebvre, prickly concierge, sneaked in for just one sip and left humming. By summer, her meetup spilled into a sunlit courtyard. Strangers became sisters, swapping recipes and resilience. That chipped cup? Now perched on a shelf like a trophy, its flaws gilded by purpose. Fatima's secret? Chamomile wasn't magic, but act of slowing down, of choosing connection over chaos, was. Paris never softened, but she'd learned to bend with it. Mornings began with market strolls, her tote brimming with mint and mischief. Even her wrinkles seemed happier. Steep your struggles. Share pot. Watch how warmth blooms. 1498 chars, CTA. Clink cups, not stress. Brew your tribe today.